I got a juicy class for you for the ankles, toes, and the feet in general. This video is divided into 2 parts, and you will need 2 pieces of equipment. You're going to need a yoga block, and you will need a slant board. Okay? If you don't have a slant board, you can use a kettlebell flipped on the ground like this, because that way your ankle can go on it, your foot can go on it, and it kind of does the same thing as the slant board. But the slant board is going to make your life way easier. So if you have foot, ankle issues, invest in a slant board. You know, it's going to make a difference in your lifelong pursuit of creating buttery joints. By the way, if you have time, you can do both part 1 and part 2 back to back. If you have time, if you want to do part 1 in the morning, part 2 in the evening, or another day, that's totally fine. The goal is see where your limitations lie and choose the exercises maybe in part 1 to sprinkle into your training regimen in the next 8 weeks, or choose exercises on part 2 to sprinkle into your training regimen for the next 8 weeks. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Ravi. You can find me on Instagram at The Supple Athlete. And what I do is I specialize in joint-specific strength training. It's not just a bunch of random stretches. It's specific strength training protocols for different parts and different joints in the body and various ranges of motion that allows you to build long-lasting strength in them so you can move from being stiff to supple and just move better in general. So without further ado, let's get to it. To start, I'm going to do some ankle cars, okay? But the ankle cars looks pretty simple, but it's actually more to it. So I'm going to take Nate here into a couple of different drills so he understands. I mean, he does understand, but so you guys can understand what tissues to feel like and what to look for and whatnot. Okay, so let's put your calf on a yoga block. The reason being that when your knee is in extension, you can't compensate with the knee. The tibia is not going to rotate. So you don't have to think about that compensation. And your knee is a good indicator that if you are moving the ankle in inversion and eversion, you don't want the femur to rotate in the socket, right? And it will try to. That means you have to decrease the range of motion that you're creating with the ankle to stop the femur from compensating, because this is not a hip movement. We're trying to really isolate the ankle here, okay? So your ankle goes into dorsiflexion, drive it all the way up, right? As much as you can, that's dorsiflexion, okay? Your ankle also goes into plantar flexion, so gas pedal it down. See what that feels like? So this is dorsiflexion, that's plantar flexion. Now, your ankle also goes into eversion, which is tilting to this side, is towards your pinky side, it tilts. And it goes also into inversion, which is tilting that side. And really focus on turning your heel too when you do this, okay? So that's inversion and eversion. Also, you can invert and evert in a dorsiflexion with a dorsiflexed bias and with a plantar flex bias. So let's see what it feels like. So let's drive it all the way up into dorsiflexion first. Okay, perfect. Now create eversion in dorsiflexion. See what that feels like? And it's okay if the toe wants to go crazy. With more practice, you'll get more control over it. And then go into inversion in dorsiflexion, right? Notice what that feels like. Now, relax everything, gas pedal everything down. Now give me eversion, which is going to be a little bit harder for some people in this position, in plantar flexion. Now give me inversion in plantar flexion. Okay? Now when we do the cars, we're going to put all of this together. But before we do that, I really want to make you understand and feel what tissues are involved when you do inversion and eversion, okay? So you have it in a neutral position. When you are here, right, if you were alone, I would ask you to place 2 fingers here. I'm gonna put my fingers there for Nat because I'm here, but when you're at home, place 2 fingers right here, because when you're creating eversion, these tissues you're gonna feel become bumpy here, okay? And then when you create eversion, you're gonna really feel it in the arch of your foot. All the stuff around there is helping you pull that ankle towards the other side. So what I'm gonna ask you to do, we're gonna do this for 10 reps, very slow and controlled. Pay attention to what this guy is doing. And then give me eversion. Let's find this tissue. You feel it on the side? Place your fingers on there so you can get some feedback and squeeze a little bit more. Squeeze through it, and see how he's creating some internal rotation? I'm holding it here. Squeeze for me, squeeze for me, squeeze for me. Good. Now pull towards the other side. Think about the arch of your foot really getting involved. Pull with everything you have. Try to turn this guy towards that side of the room and squeeze and squeeze. Good. That's 1 rep. Now let's go back and forth. Now that you know what tissues are involved, let's find those tissues in these 10 reps. Squeeze it and then move towards the other side. Good. That's 2. Pay attention to what your hip is doing at all times. Squeeze it. Good. And there's going to be very limited movement for some of you guys, okay? Because you've never asked your ankle to move like this, so don't expect that you're just going to have control after 1 rep of, doing ankle cars. It's going to take time. This shit takes time, okay? Squeeze. But once you build this awareness and you do it right and you start right, then your gains will be exponential. Thank me later. Give me 4 more reps. Let's drive, squeeze like your life depends on it. And then rotate to this side. Good. 3 more reps. Don't forget, your fingers are always here. You're trying to really find that tension and that squeeze. And every repetition you go, you fight for a 0.5 millimeter more. When I say 0.5 millimeter, because it's barely going to move, especially in the beginning. This is like an Indiana Jones cave with like a cave of a wall that hasn't been opened in 1 million years, and you have recently stumbled upon it. So it's gonna be that feeling, okay? For some of you guys. Now, good. Now that you know what this feels like, and your ankles must be toast by now, okay? When you're doing this, even this simple movement. Now we're gonna put it all together in through an ankle car, okay? We're gonna do 2 reps per direction. What I'm gonna ask you to do, it doesn't matter how you start, but the sequence will be the same. So either you can pull up, pull, pause, tilt, eversion, squeeze, find that tissue, pause, plantar flex, but when you plantar flex, have that eversion bias. Perfect. Keep going. Once you can't keep it with an everted bias anymore, it turns into neutral plantar flexion. Then it turns into inverted bias plantar flexion. And then you pull this MF up. All the way up, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. Exactly. And see, you're driving it in an inverted bias in dorsiflexion. Once you can't anymore, it turns into neutral. Then tilt, drive. That's the best way I could explain it to you online, in my opinion. There's, it takes focus to do this without compensations. It's not just ankle circles that you see soccer players do. Pause, other way around. It's intentional movement of the ankle without allowing all the other shit to chime in, okay? Especially if you have an ankle issue, we want to do this a lot. Every single day. Think 1,000 reps a day. You're not going to do 1,000, you're going to do 30, hopefully, but that's just going to make a difference because that blood supply, nutrients, oxygen is going to go all the way in that area. It's going to give your ankle more options to move. Especially your ankles evert and invert a lot when you're hiking and doing shit like that. So, tilt, squeeze, 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 squeeze. There we go. And then down. Hallelujah. Okay. Other ankle. Okay. So, let's first find dorsiflexion here, see what it feels like. Find plantar flexion, see what it feels like. Go to neutral now. Find eversion, place your fingers here, don't forget to, yes, squeeze. I feel a better contraction on this right foot than I did on the left. And a lot of you guys are gonna feel the same. And it's okay. That means you have to work on the other side more to give it a little bit more feedback. Now show me inversion on this side. There we go. Now let's go all the way into dorsiflexion and give me inversion and eversion in dorsiflexion. And let's see what difference do you feel when you're there, right? Because it's just a matter of identifying what you feel there. So when you're going into the car, you're like, okay, now I'm doing it right because this kind of feels familiar in the drills I did beforehand. Now let's go to plantar flexion, and let's go eversion, inversion, and eversion bias in plantar flexion. Think about the heel turning too, see? Perfect. And then tilt to the other side. Hallelujah. Now, let's go to neutral and give me 10 reps, right, of inversion and eversion. Tilt, and then tilt. You're helping your brain draw an internal map of this position and of this movement right now. That's one. That's two. Squeeze. That's three. At home, you guys, place the fingers here. That's four. And if you see your fingers, your toes are going nuts, try. It's okay if you don't have control over them, but try to just relatively relax those guys and move from here. It takes focus, but it is possible after many, many sessions. Let's go 4 more reps. Good. Two more reps. One more rep. And tilt. There we go. Okay. Now, we're going to do the cars, okay? So for the cars, let's drive this up, tilt, in any direction you want, doesn't matter how you start. Don't let this internally rotate, and then gas pedal down. There we go. Tilt to the other side. Yes. Drive up. More. There we go. And then tilt. Pay attention to what your heel wants to do. Turn the heel. There we go. And then rotate to the other side. Once you get into that dorsiflex everted bias, you're going to retrace your steps. Drive up, pause, retrace. Some of you guys too might be shaking like crazy when you're doing this, if you're doing it with the same level of focus and intensity that Nate is doing, because your nervous system is just, you know, going bananas because you haven't just focused any time like this. So your knee might be shaking. Don't internally rotate this guy. And a lot of shaking would be involved. This is normal. This is natural. So don't beat yourself up about it. Good. Great. All right. Now that we know what these tissues feel like, we can do some isometric work for them, right? To help you understand, to help you build strength there, okay? Now, we're going to work on eversion first, right? Then I'm going to work on inversion. Then I'm going to work on some dorsiflexion, one with a bent knee, one with a straight knee, because it just hits different tissues. Then we're going to do some big toe work. However, you're going to need either a slant board, okay, or a kettlebell would do as well, okay? A slant board is going to be more ideal. And I'm going to show you why you're going to need this, because when I'm going to train inversion, right, in the standing position, I can use the kettlebell, right, to kind of allow me to passively get into eversion, right? And I can also use the slant board to allow me to passively get into eversion, right? Slant board is going to be king, but if you don't have it, not the end of the world. And then we go from there, okay? So, if you're using a slant board, I want you to stand up and I'll explain everything a little bit more in detail. So, one foot will always go on a block, and you can hold on to something, right? One foot is going to go on a block. This foot, you're going to plant it on the board, okay? Like this. Now, right now, I'm leaning towards my left leg, and my foot is in a neutral position. Now, as I use this leg to push into this side, you're going to notice that the more I push myself towards this side, the deeper in eversion I am going to get to. We're not going to hold a 2-minute stretch here, right? Because you're not really stretching your tissue at end range. We're going to use pails and rails strength training protocol here, though. And what I want you to focus on is that I don't want all the pressure of your body to be on this foot, distributed like this, right? A little bit. And then, in this position, the pails contraction is us trying to scoop this way, right? Remember that drill that I emphasized that you do this? Same thing. But because the slant is planted underneath your feet, you're only able to load the responsible tissues on this side at length. Okay? And I don't want your big toe to lift off. You're going to plant and twist. So plant first and then twist so you can load all of that. The rails contraction is the opposite, is me trying to do the opposite, get more eversion a little bit. Okay? So pails is you trying to drive this way. Rails is you trying to drive this way. Okay? We're not going to go super max effort. We're going to go about 40 to 50% for a longer duration hold, right? And then we will go from there, brother. Ready?
Ready.
Let's get it. Now, Nat's not going to be in the frame, but we don't need to see his face. we just need to see his ankles. All right. Now, let's lean towards that side, but don't have all the pressure on this foot. You're going to distribute a little bit onto the other side as well. Now, what? You feel that eversion? Okay, good. Pause here. Planting this down, we're going to create pails contraction, and pails is essentially you're trying to go into inversion. Give me 10%. So plant and twist, loading all the stuff here at 10%. Now, when I say 10%, don't jump to 70. Slow, gradual buildup on the pails contraction. Now, twist, tilt 20%. Yeah. Tilt 30%. Tilt, not tilt, tilt 40%. And hold, okay? Let's hold, hold, hold. 30 more seconds. 5 more seconds. Now give me rails. You're trying to lift it. Exactly. Remember the drill that we did. Remember what, this is why I'm like, put your fingers there so you can feel the tissues, so you know what tissues to contract when you do that rails contraction. Do it, don't do it at your max effort here, okay? 40%, 40 seconds. Great job, Nat. This is phenomenal. Not a lot of you guys will do it like this in the beginning, but this guy is my colleague and he's certified and he's done it for a while. So that's why it's easy. I mean, he makes it look easy, but it's not. Good. Relax. Fantastic. Okay? Now we're going to just switch to the other side. Okay? Very, very simple. It's not simple at all, actually, but we're trying our best to show you how it's done. All right, let's hold. Now, what I said, find somewhat a deeper position in inversion, and it's okay for your arch to collapse and go down. Don't worry about that. We actually want that in this position. And when you're ready, okay, plant and tilt. There we go. So we can load all the stuff here. Remember that drill that we did and you did go in and went to inversion and eversion. I told you feel the arch of your foot. This is where it comes in handy, that awareness that we've built, those drills. Give me 20%. Give me 30%. Give me 40% and hold. And if you don't have this inversion and eversion, if you don't have rotation in your ankle, you will find it very hard to progress in linear movements of the ankle too, right? Because this needs to, your foot needs to tilt when you're moving. You got 20 more seconds here. See how the big toe is not lifting because we're planting and twisting. We're not just twisting. And switch to rails. Ten more seconds. And if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, man, this stuff is going to be a game changer. Relax. Jiu-jitsu gal or guy. Okay, now we're going to do everything but for inversion now. Okay, so the inversion, the difference is, I'm just going to put this guy here. I'm going to increase the slant a little bit. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just plant this guy here. And then you're going to plant the other guy on top of this area. See how it's an inversion? Now lean towards this leg. And maybe you do a half lunge. There we go. See? Because when you're here, again, you're not at your absolute end range. We're just trying to load that side in length isometrically. So what you're going to do here, right, even lunge a little bit more on that side, okay? So you're not falling and slipping down. And the good thing about the slant board here is just the texture is not going to let you slip. You're going to plant, and the pales contraction is the opposite of the other one. So you're going to just try to go into inversion. So that's, you're trying to right now go to inversion. The pales, you're trying to go to eversion. Exactly. So you're going to plant this, and you're going to try to twist this way. You're going to go to eversion. So you're loading all the outside tissue here. Plant and twist. There we go. But when you plant and twist, I don't want this to lift off because you're planting first, and then you're twisting. So we can just find this tissue here. Now go 20% here. There we go. Let's go 30%. Let's go 40% and hold. Plant, good, and hold. We're just gently loading this side here, and this is why is this important, especially if you get ankle sprains, because we need to build load-bearing capacity here, so when your ankle falls into a position like this, you're not screwed. Shit doesn't hit the fan because we've built load-bearing capacity here. Obviously, this is a very elementary level towards building that load-bearing capacity. We're doing it only at 40%, but then we can work our way up once you understand what it feels like to even load this area. Now, switch to rails. Yes. Rails is the exact opposite. You're trying to get deeper in that position actively. Now be smart about this. If you have issues, major issues with the ankle, maybe don't do it this deep. Maybe do it with a little bit less intensity. I'm not there. I'm not coaching you. I'm not on a Zoom call with you, so I don't know what your capacities are. So be smart when you're following advice on the internet. Take it with a huge grain of salt, no matter who it is. And relax. Good. Now we're going to switch to the other side. Just going to put this here. There we go. And if you need, you can put this block over there if you need to, if you don't have the hip mobility to, you know, get into this side lunging position. Okay, you can do it against the wall too. Now let's find this. Yes, perfect. And now give me 10%. We're going to plant this and turn that way. See? Perfect. You're going to try to create eversion for the pales contraction. Give me 20%. Give me 30%. Give me 40% and hold. Keep going hard. 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give me rails. Trying to lift this side. Planting and trying to lift, not actually lifting. For a second, I thought the microphone died. I was like, no. All right. Oh, no. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Okay. That's one of the many things we can do with the ankles, but in the beginning, we don't want to just overdo it.